Hi, Shreyasi.
Hi.
Welcome to this Shreyasi in the World Education Summit, the 17th World Education Summit, uh, which is happening this time, but first time virtual. And and hope you people from industry and from government and from education institutes might be liking it as well. So now I'm very glad and quite honored to have you here and have your presence.
Thank
And
you.
we from World Education Summit and Digital Learning Magazine and its Technomedia, we welcome you. And uh, I will now request you to address, and I just introduce everybody to you again. There's an exclusive session on reimagine your students' future, and this session, and we will have an address of Shreyasi Singh, who is founder and CEO of Harappa Education, and they are doing a really great innovative work in this country, and a name very popular in the education scenario and in the people in general. And I will request to start your address, Shreyasi, and so that we start with this uh, exclusive session with you on reimagine your students'
Sure.
future.
Thank you, Karthik. Thank
Shreyasi.
you for that. Sure. Thank you, Karthik. Thank you for having me, and congratulations on the event. And I hope it's been going well. I had a chance to listen in on the last 5, 7 minutes of the earlier session, and there's just fascinating insights from everyone. And I think very progressive views from the senior educationists on the panel in terms of the mistrust-based system. Um, and good morning to everyone who's logged in. As Karthik said, Harappa Education is essentially an online learning institution where we've put together a curriculum framework of cognitive, social, and behavioral skills that we think are so critical for the success of all of your students and all of India's students. And these are skills that we believe are very, very crucial for success when they get into the real world and at the workplace. With that, if I can request the organizers to present the deck that I'll be using for the conversation. I'll try and wrap it up in 10, 12 minutes so that we have time for a conversation and for any questions that you have. Essentially, so if I can have the presentation up, please. Thank you very much. I think the bands of the sponsor is sort of taking away a little bit from the speech, but I'm sure we'll be fine, and I'll be able to walk you through really the big themes and the in what I'd like to speak about. I think in reimagining the students' future, and especially in a time like this, and I think I just felt like let's make it very seasonal. I mean, we talk about well whether it's the NEP, whether it's all of the ills moving from a mistrust-based to trust-based system, whether it's moving from progressive curriculum where there's much more autonomy for your students to choose computer science and English, as somebody said in the earlier panel. The fact is that the journey that we are all on trying to address some of the challenges that institutions as well as students and faculty face in higher education systems. The fact is we all also have to deal with what's right up ahead for us. And I know that for many of you, for many institutions and for students, the next 3 or 4, the next 6 months is likely to be a very, very stressful time, given that placement season is upon us, and all of the chaos and the uncertainty that the pandemic has foisted on us, and nobody really knows what's going to happen with the placements. And uh, none of this is new to you. Of course, that we're seeing that activity happen, and kudos to everyone. Kudos to all of director careers and other people who are trying to get this done in an unprecedented manner in this way. But if of course, the stakes are even tougher this year. But if we could move to the new slide, I think if we were all honest and had a moment of introspection to say that there are persistent challenges that happen in that and trends and themes that are persistent as challenges for us when it comes to this journey of taking students and learners out of the educational institutions and into the workplace. And as my next slide would show you, and if if anyone who's ever managing the slide, if you could please move to the next slide, would show you that three kinds of things we're constantly hearing about. And I don't think this is news to any of us. The fact that our graduates are not employable, the fact that the very worrying trend. Can we move to the next slide, please? Thank you very much. I don't think the fact that graduates are yeah, unemployable, I'm sure all of you and all of us have to wrestle with this. And this is sort of data that keeps coming at us all of the time. But I think a really interesting also point to think about, and this is not just from a cracking the placement season perspective, but the fact is this the middle number, I think, is often very, very challenging as well. Is the institution and all of you often and the learners make a lot of effort to get that first job, and then to what effect? We've seen the students who get placed in college quit within the first year due to a misfit. And I think that's where the lack of preparation is something that we need to start thinking about, because it really is wasted time and effort on part of the institution which works so hard to get this. As well as, obviously, we were speaking about the curriculum and how contemporary and modern one can make it from a usefulness perspective. At Harappa, we have a slightly, and I think there are many, and obviously you have to learn skills. The half-life of skills, or skills that are current right now, especially on the technical side. But our hypothesis and our belief at Harappa actually is the fact that as things change, what doesn't change really are some foundational skills that help you be that help prepare you not just for the placement season, which is an important milestone that we all have to get live, but really the transition as a professional out in the world, trying to be successful and sort of reach their own potential, as well as to be able to embrace and go through all the ways of change and disruption and technology shifts that all of us are seeing through in such an accelerated manner. So if you go to the next slide, please. We think that there are many opportunities, and just to focus on a different kinds of skills. And again, none of these are skills that you haven't heard about. I think over the last 7-8 years, this narrative has just kept getting seeded and built. I, I think a year like 2020 has just made all of this just sharpened, and for us to not be able to, I don't think any one of us can look back from these and understand what these are. So I think the need of the hour really is 21st century skills, because it will not only be able to help your students and learners get jobs, it can help them be successful once they get a job, or different jobs that they do, or whatever else it is that they choose to do, and it will make them more resilient and prepared for the change that is inevitable and unanticipated, as well as anticipated trends, shifts, disruptions that happen. What are the opportunities that we feel for higher educational institutions to focus on is really on the next slide, and the skills that we need to focus on to the drilling down from this into the smaller skill sets that we need to focus on. So if you can just move to the next slide, please. And this might be a little bit tiny for all of you to see, but I hope you can see some of that. I think some core focus areas in terms of an opportunity for us to help our students reimagine their success in the future, beyond obviously interview conversion and things like that, which we're taking as legitimate success milestones and metrics as well, is about professionalism. I think we've seen that in if you speak to most employers and recruiters and line managers, is sort of just the basic professionalism and work ethic that students and graduates come with, can be really challenging to deal with, right? And these are things that really damage them and put impressions in the first 3 months, 6 months of their stint in their first job or in any job, can be a very powerful impression that they make on anyone, and then struggle to sort of overcome if that impression is built and if the right behaviors haven't been demonstrated. Right to decision making skills when shifts happen, of course, on embracing and facilitating change, given that is a reality for all of us. I think this sort of golden circle of skills are really opportunity areas for us to focus on, to reimagine and really enable and equip our students to be successful come what may, successful in any year, including a year like this, or any year of change, um, uh, or even of stability. If you move to the next slide, please, we have come up with, I'll just wait for the slide to move. To break this down, I think what happens with when people use big words like, or just big themes that everyone keeps talking about is future of work in Industry 4.0 and 21st century skills. This just seems like this sort of intangible, ambiguous, sort of cloud of skills that nobody really understands. Okay, what should I do with it? What should my students really learn? What should I really be teaching? At Harappa, we've come up with, what we hope is a exhaustive yet comprehensive set of 5 habits and 25 cognitive, social, and behavioral skills, as we call it, sort of neatly categorized in the 5 core habits of being able to think, being able to solve problems, being able to communicate effectively, being able to collaborate, work with others, being able to lead. And this is about leading yourself and managing yourself even before you get the privilege and the chance to lead others. And then, of course, each of the skills that come under each of these habits make up our 5 habits and 25 skills framework. And of course, nothing, no curriculum can ever be fully complete, and no framework can ever seem fully complete. But we do believe that this is an exhaustive yet comprehensive list of cognitive, social, and behavioral skills, and made a little bit tangible, breaking it down from the big narrative around 21st century skills and future of work in Industry 4.0. Using these skills, I think these skills are very important. Really, I would reckon to say that none of us, however many years of experience that we might have as professionals, whether we're building companies, leading large institutions, being head of faculty and head of departments, none of us can profess complete proficiency and mastery and excellence on these skills. I think we're all, I think as educators, we're first and foremost lifelong learners ourselves, and should be. And especially on skills like this, which you start feeling the need for some of these skills differently. So what we've done is these are foundational skills that will be really relevant to you in different intensity and different levels of proficiency, and for different objectives that you might have in your career, right from the time you're 18 to till really you're sort of, a productive individual in the world. And we've created a seemingly short-term and transactional program like the placement readiness program, to package some of these skills, the most important ones that you need from a placement readiness perspective, for a program for graduating the graduating class, and help them over the next 4 or 5 months to be able to do it. But really, it is the same set of skills that will be relevant for them through their lives, and it will be lessons that they will not forget. So if we were to go to the next slide, please, and that if I could walk you through what we think would be really useful for the short term yet substantial and important goal for you as an institution leader, as well as for your students in the next 6 months, especially for the graduating classes, to be able to get a job that, given the families are in economic strength, get a job that they need, but in that process also start helping them with skills that will be useful for them as professionals, whichever industry, whichever role, whichever function it is that they go in. Think about it, listening actively. A doctor needs listening actively. And first and foremost, a doctor needs to understand, for example, establishing trust. Defining problems, of course, an engineer needs it, but so does a marketer. So does, of course, negotiating wisely, a salesperson might need it. But so can a public policy activist working on multi-stakeholder sort of programs. So I think these set of skills are relevant for students of all discipline. They're relevant for whatever industries they'll go in, and they're relevant for all the jobs that they might want to do, not just their first job, but every job that they might want to do afterwards as well. So we go to the next slide, then it sort of breaks this down into the program a little bit. Can we move to the next slide, please? Like I was saying, that the program that we've come up with, the Harappa PRP, or the Harappa Place Readiness Program, and it's immediate first level short term goal is to help your students become the top choice of any recruiter on campus. If we can move to the next slide, please. And essentially, let me walk you through this a little bit. Essentially, that program which can run and is highly customizable to the need that you have, the time that you have, and the investment of time and effort that your students can make on the program. Modular elements of, these 7 modular elements of online courses, individual coaching. I think one-on-one coaching can be very, very powerful at a time when anyway students are lost, worried, anxious, not sure about the decisions they want to make. Should they choose the industry first? Should they think of the role? Is it all about compensation? How do they even make sense of their prior experiences, and how do they even position that? Expert-led master classes, and this could be from going deeper into an industry of choice or a role of choice that you need to do, the role of choice that you need to do. It can be instructor-led training sessions, peer group discussions, curated reading material, and of course, lots of post-course exercises. I think these are all of the elements. Each you can go with each or none of them at all. And the high impact online courses, we think these five skills are really, really critical for us to get this done. It's a skill of listening actively. If you can just give me a minute, please, 1 second. Sorry about that. Is the high impact online courses is the skills of being able to listen. I think we've seen that our experiences based interviews. Sometimes the interview is really starts off badly because the student has come in and they're so anxious, obviously, in any case, that sometimes they absolutely miss what is being asked of them to answer. And I think, and don't pick up clues. So listening actively is not just, you just don't listen from your ears, you listen from your eyes, you listen from your mind, right? And I think some very, very useful frameworks, and listening is a skill that is going to be valuable for all of us and for anyone through their careers. Obviously, being able to speak effectively. I think that's a pain point that's well understood by everyone, and the impact and the potential benefits of being an effective communicator are obvious to all of us. Being able to think critically, and I think but that means just pattern recognition. Are you able to connect the dots? Are you able to declutter the information deluge that you have? And that we all are sort of sucked into right now. It's being to establish trust, a very simple framework on how do you even establish trust with somebody you meet for the first time. What do you think about somebody who you want to deepen trust with, whether it be somebody you work with? What happens if trust in one interview got broken, and what would you do? And of course, leading self, some easy, simple, very easy and simple to apply everyday tools and frameworks for people to start thinking about their own performance, their own potential, and their own interferences. Honestly, one of my favorite courses at Harappa. I think if you understand and can do anything to heighten your self-awareness, everything else sort of flows in place, and people will then pick and build the skills in what they need to do. If you can move to the next slide, please. And I think in a minute or so, I'll stop so that if there are any questions, I'm happy to take it. I think we've automated a lot of the interview process so that people can practice. I think practicing mock interviews is just so important to help students feel it's just one more meeting that you'll have, and that you need to calm down and that you can get the feedback. And we use this for stages of or for proficiency levels, really, from attentive to exemplary, on these 4 key skills that we look for in the behavioral interview rubric that we use and that we've seen students find very, very useful. If we can move to the next slide, please. Just some feedback from, we've been privileged to have already worked with some institutions on some of these courses and this program, and the value that students are beginning to see from these courses. If we can move on, please, from the next slide. So with that, we come to the end of the presentation. Really, just to say, to help your students stay one step ahead, just to give your students an edge. world. We believe that the Harappa Placement Readiness Program can really help um, your students with both the short term, mid term, and hopefully instill the need to, you know, build these foundational skills so that they're able to both grow professionally and personally. With that, I'll sort of end the presentation and very, very keen and eager to take any questions that you have.
Hi, Ceci. So I'm in the backstage. Ceci, are you getting my voice?
Yes, yes,
So I'm just listening, and I'm the backstage, just listening all the PPT, wonderful presentation. And there is some questions, Ceci, from the audience side. One is
sure.
a question that comes from the audience that you are in this education sector, you are dealing with the industry experts, with the academicians, as well as the policymakers. So what is the major challenges that you are seeing right now in the higher education in current of the digital education and the awareness regarding the digital education? So what is the major challenges in to
Sure.
collaborate with to bridge the gap between industry experts, academicians, and the policymakers?
I think there are obviously, I think this is such a multi-stakeholder problem, and I think there are just, and not a problem. I think it's the nature of the stage at which we are in our journey towards moving towards and online towards online learning also being an important and substantial and significant model of learning. I think one big challenge is, and I think we all have to understand whether it's private providers like us, whether it's faculty who've had to change overnight and start teaching online overnight with almost no preparation in March and April. And kudos to all of you. Whether it's policymakers and how credentialing works, and how do you ensure. I feel like the first problem is for all of us to understand that we are really in the first generation of online learning, right? As content providers, as students, as faculty, as institutions, as employers, as the government, right? So I think the challenge is for us not to make, I think, very fixed judgments on what works, what doesn't work, without any of us right now sort of seeing all the possibilities, without us having empirical evidence on many parts of this problem. So I think the one challenge or the one consensus that I think we come to, that disruption or changes, and the earlier system of the formal higher education system or education systems which are largely offline has been embedded and part of our lives for so long that the journey to something else will um, be experienced differently for different people, and everybody will make a different impression of it, but not to, please ensure that let's not make very fixed impressions of it. I think a lot will change, and things will get better. And the first class of the whatever you had in April or May that you took as a student, or you had to teach as a faculty on online, it's not really the only online tools that you will have.
Yes.
So much will evolve. It's like being at the beginning of, it's like black and white movies, right? And now we watch IMAX movies. And that's really what the evolution of any new format takes. So yeah, that's, I think, big challenge is not to lose hope and to have patience with the change, and to keep the faith that things will get better and this can be, and to commit to solving the issues. I think I think the challenge is first and foremost, because we are talking about learning and learning happening. I mean, that's the purpose of education, really, right? That people learn something that they can do or think better with it, is really the motivation on both the learner side as well as the educator side. I think on the educator side, the motivation to change a whole way of the way that you would teach before. And I think on learner side, actually, learner motivation continues to, I think, always be the biggest challenge. And that's true whether it's online or offline. Does your student really want to learn what you're trying to teach them? And I think that continues to be the big challenge.
And one more question: that will distance education will have the same impact as regular one? People are asking
You
this.
know, this is what I meant by the earlier
Same
thing.
weightage as
I
the
don't
regular
know,
one.
and and I don't know, and in which course, for which kind of student, for what kind of skill, right? I think we can't make. I don't think any of us can afford to make blanket judgment on is one format works for like 220 million children in school, 25, 30 million people in higher education. Will one format work? I feel like one of the things that I've heard a lot from parents whose children were slightly more introverted was that they actually love the freedom of not having to deal with a lot of the social aspects immediately that come, and have some safety in being able to do things online. I think for some courses and some skills, I won't say distance, different formats can work. And also, I think we have to think about learning does not stop at 22 when you finish your master's, or 23 when you finish your master's. It continues throughout your life as you are an individual. And then not for every course. I think the real beauty, I think, for of online learning or distance learning, as is being asked in this question, is the fact that you can. There's some skills you learn for breadth, and you can't leave your job, leave your home, and go to admit yourself in a 1 year full-time course, and that can't be the only way to learn, because then from 25 to 55, 60, it'll be impossible for you to do that regularly. But as a professional out in the world, you have to learn so many skills, and then the convenience and the autonomy of being able to do different things is really important. So distance learning for whom, distance learning when, distance learning for which skill, distance learning by whom. I think there are too many layers to arrive at,
Okay.
and also we don't have the evidence yet.
So, and Ceci, this is the question that is from my side. So, what is the idea behind to name Harappa? How you choose that
Ah,
we should start with the name Harappa Education? So, how this idea pops up in your mind, Ceci?
okay, that's my favorite question ever. Because of course, as founders, I think we love the name. No, but more seriously, I think for my co-founder, Dr. Sadha, and me, I think the one important thing for us was to have a name that was evocative of the cultural fabric in which this company is born, and the cultural fabric that we come from, right? Because if you're English language learning content, you know that you can go beyond India pretty quickly. But we felt whether it was a learner in hopefully in the US, UK, Singapore, Dubai, anywhere, who might take a Harappa course, the fact that the company is born of this cultural heritage was really important for us. I think the three attributes of the old Harappa civilization that really called out to us, and that we want to feel like we're building our
Hmm.
Harappa to those attributes. It's one, the spirit of being a pioneering civilization, right? This was a old civilization at that time in the world. It was a pioneering civilization for many things: sanitation, urban planning, the council elders, an administrative system, and we feel we're a pioneering. We hope our mission and purpose is to build a pioneering learning institution at the intersection of technology, cognitive skills, and leading to learner success and impact. So pioneering was a very important element. Second was foundational. We talked about these being foundational skills, and the foundations of that civilization were also very strong. And we feel we want our learners to have a strong foundation on which to build their success on. And last was the fact that there's a timelessness and an enduring quality to Harappa, right? We've all,
Okay.
it's such an old civilization, but we all have a memory of it by studying it. And we hopefully our Harappa will also last for years and centuries, and be a timeless, enduring institution.
And Ceci, one more question to you, that you have focused, Harappa Education have focused much more on the 21st century skills and the habits. So, what is the
Yes.
major ideas that you have said that we have to major focus on the skills is due to the change in the technology, or the how people can judge that in the future technology, this technology will come and we have to work on these skills. So, how this idea evolved that we have to work on the 21st century skills, because you have taken so much
Actually,
stress on that.
yeah.
Yes,
So
yes, yes, yes.
actually, we're not interested beyond a point in anyway, any technology changes in 5 years is what we're seeing,
Yes.
right? Which means you can't, you, of course, you'll have to train yourself for that technology if you're working in that
Hmm.
field which has gotten whatever, and you'll have to learn. But really, throughout your life, I think our framework, we said these are skills which will never go out of style, or which or these are human skills which you will always need. You'll always need a way for whatever information is coming to you to think about it critically. You'll always, hopefully, will always need this ability to interact with each other where we have to speak to each other, right? We will always need to build trust. So in our case, our focus on 21st century skills is not because technology has made them more relevant. That's also true. I think we really believe in a curriculum because we feel whatever technology comes, the fact of these basic foundational human skills will continue to be important.
Right. So thank you, Ceci. Thank you very much for giving your precious time. So I request all my audience, if you have any question, you can follow Ceci on the social handles, and you can take all the question offline as well. And if you want to know more about the Harappa education, so we have our Harappa booth, and Harappa team is available. They can give you any solution regarding the Harappa education. So, Ceci, thank
Thank
you
you.
very much, and the best wishes for the Harappa education to give the all the borders solutions. Thank you, Ceci, for coming in World
Thank,
Education Summit.
thank you so
So,
much. Thank you, Elets, and
thank
everyone.